Well, it is BlizzCon 2018, Day 2. I'm joined by Pete Stilwell, reunited with the lead producer on Classic Games to talk about a different thing than last time. Last time was Brood War.
Yeah, howdy. Yeah, it's exciting to be back with another remaster.
So this time you went. Let's just lead off with this: Warcraft 3 Reforged. Why Reforge?
Um, the difference between SCR and Reforged is that when we talk to the community with StarCraft Remastered, the marching orders were, hey, we love this game. It's perfect. If you change anything, you probably have ruined it. So don't do that. Make it pretty. Give us 1v1 matchmaking and then go away. So we took that to heart and we built the team around it. And then we emerged out of that with a really good RTS team. And while we were winding down on StarCraft, we started to talk more and more with the War 3 community. And the marching orders were different. It was, hey, we don't think we've seen everything with this game yet. We think there are definitely balance changes needed, and the editor is so powerful, but if it could just do these 500 other things, it would be that much better. So we felt like it was more progressive as a name because the approach for the project is more progressive, and we wanted to try to communicate that to the players like right off the bat.
Now, it's interesting to see now that I've been able to play Brood War and then at the show floor. Now I've played it twice with Reforged. Um, it it's interesting to see the differences in what you're able to do with the two engines. And maybe you can explain this to me. Do you rebuild the engine, or is everything that's being done within the existing Warcraft 3 engine? Because I see things that look wildly different than in War 3, whereas like Brood War, it felt like you were seeing a lot of things like basically up-resed, even though I know sometimes you were rebuilding them. I'm just kind of curious what that approach is.
Yeah, same sort of sentiment as the like what's the difference between reforged and remastered with SCR. It was like a 1-to-1 pixel perfect. The silhouette must be the same. The every single frame of the animation must be the same because it was tied to the gameplay engine. So they were too coupled to decouple and still have it play the way it would. Whereas with this one, we've got the links of the animations need to be the same, so you and I don't desync if you were playing SD and I was playing Reforged. But everything in between can be livened up, and so we've taken that opportunity with the animations. The basis of your question, though, is which engine is this? It's still the War 3 engine. The cool thing is WoW took the War 3 engine, like when they built WoW initially, it's an evolution of the War 3 engine. So we went to the WoW team and got a bunch of their cool stuff and backported it. So like it's this kind of full circle of the engine. And we even had a few of the guys from the WoW team help us take it even further because, they understood the code base so well. So it's got physics-based rendering. Like we're talking, cutting edge technology from a graphics standpoint for this, which is why we're getting this level of fidelity for the cutscenes and why it looks so beautiful.
Yeah, because that's what I was gonna say. The cutscene, like, I get into the Culling, which is what you guys have playable here, and I'm like, whoa, Arthas and like Uther, their faces are so much different. I'm like, what? How does that even go about? As you mentioned, though, it sounds like similar to I missed the panel, but I'm sure a lot of people watching this also missed it. You can play SD to the Reforged. It's completely compatible.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So they're compatible. It's still fundamentally the same gameplay engine, the same renderer. Like, and that's the difference between SCR and this one too. Like F5, you flip between kind of the two options. With this, because it is a 3D game, there will be many more slide scales of getting it right for your rig and things like that. So like that in of itself is very exciting to be able to give more optionality to folks. If you want the old way, you'll have the old way. If you love what we've done with it, then you'll get that too.
Now, I remember talking to one of the guys on the StarCraft team when you guys went back and remastered that about the sort of deep diving into like the old code and all that stuff. What was it like doing that with this compared to the StarCraft side?
Pretty similar. Like kind of like our team, it was the same crew, kind of moving from one game to another. There's still some hilarious code comments that we can't repeat publicly. Things like that. There's similar like, hey, lessons learned, and if you've seen the culling floor demo, like we've reduced the UI so much, right? And tried to make that look more modern, and that's experimental. So if people have a strong opinion about that, we're listening. We wanted to get an early version out there to kind of get the conversation going. But that was one of those things where when we first turned the UI off, there was only blackness there, and same with the top of the screen. There was a little tiny bar of black when we shrunk it in. And Jay, who's our lead graphics engineer, who was also on the original game, he goes, yeah, like most of the reason we made that UI so big was to save on rendering paths so that we could make the game more performant, because even when the artists were making these 50 poly models, we were still like pushing technology at the time, and everything we could do to, and that includes, this is another fun one, upkeep. Upkeep was a way of keeping less units on the screen kind of as a mechanic, instead of just saying you can't have them, to kind of deter most people from getting that high up.
See, it was so funny. I get into the game and suddenly it goes, bong, low upkeep, and I'm like, wait, I completely forgot about this mechanic. Like it's so funny now. One of the things that even I thought was kind of neat was that with Arthas, as he's cruising around, suddenly you look down and you expect to see the little portrait there, like the animated portrait. Instead, there's like it's kind of like a 3D model or whatever. What's the sentiment there? Is that going to continue forward, or what's the reasoning with that element?
I hope we do. I hope the community likes it. We just thought it added a spice, and once again, just like with the cutscenes themselves, where we're getting so close, we're like, hey, if we're putting this level of fidelity into them, like let you enjoy it all the time, because there's plenty of units that aren't in cutscenes and don't have extreme close-ups. So let's give it to you in those moments. I think there's also the hope that if we give an API to a streamer, he or she could put themselves right there, and kind of have that green screen effect on their own. Like I think there's a lot going on with the UI, because we made it all modular. So kind of like WoW or whatever else, things should be able to be moved around and changed in a way that never was before. And that's huge, I think, more so for the map making community, who are making crazy custom mods where whatever they want to do, there's going to be a lot more power kind of in their ability to control what the game experience is. Because before, you still always kind of had that UI. So you always felt like, oh, I'm still in Warcraft. If you're a custom map maker who's making a survival horror game or something that's in a different universe, let's let you have all the tools to do that.
It's so funny you mentioned the streamer thing. I didn't even think about that, but now it's like it does look like Arthas is streaming his game like against a green screen. You should release a version where like it's like a face filter so that when I stream I can have Arthas's expression over me. That'd be quite fun. All right, so what are the major areas where you're looking to change or improve upon what was there before? Obviously, you mentioned balance. Obviously, we've seen UI, but like, where else are you looking to sort of say like, hey, with new technology, with less limitations, what else can we do to really revitalize or change things?
Sure. Where to start? From like a BattleNet and a social perspective, getting onto the modern stack, and not just the ease of installing, but like staying connected with people. And we'll be using the new group systems that we have, and marrying that with the clan system. So hopefully you should be able to talk to your clan even if you're not in the game, which I think is a really powerful way to stay connected. The amount of stuff we're putting into the editor is staggering. We've actually hired a few people from the community who are doing their own mods for the editor anyway, and we're leveraging that knowledge base, and we've made hundreds of triggers. We're going to be supporting Lua, which I think opens the gates for a whole slew of people who didn't want to learn JAS and what have you to come in and figure out how powerful this editor really is.
And we should say that's all like the stuff, and for those that haven't messed with the map editor before, those are all that's all functionality that you're adding to the map editor so that people can make even more kind of crazy custom map stuff. That's really cool. How I assume everything should port over pretty easily on the custom map side.
Yeah, that's another one of those, like, the SD must play with the HD. I think we did we looked at the internet recently and found something in the neighborhood of 1 billion maps out there.
Okay.
Like staggering, right? In 16 years and a good editor, that's what you get. And to break all of that and lose all that history would be tragic. So short of somebody using like a prior to 126 return bug, which is an exploit that we fixed, like those maps should still work. And if you made it all in SD, those have like a 1-to-1 translation where it should instantly become an HD map, which I think is really powerful. Many map creators have made their own assets or brought in their own customs. So they'll need to heal that up. But we're giving the same tools that we're using to the community. And Brian and the art team are putting tutorials together to show you, like, here's how you use PBR, and here are our settings to get the metal and the way things are looking, so that if you make a custom asset, you could match that so that it seems seamlessly of the same world.
What should we expect from the cinematics? Because whenever the it showed up, you introduced it on stage, and you see like, wait, this I've seen this before, but I haven't seen this before. It's a really kind of cool feeling. So what are you guys looking to do there?
Yeah, that's a great question because that's one of those things I wanted to make sure we covered. That was what you were just saying. It was a 1-to-1 recreation of the original from scratch by our story and franchise development team, which is amazing. The rest of the cinematics in there, though, we have the originals, and they were built at like a 1080 resolution. But because of the constraints of the time of needing to be on a disc that was small, and the fact that most computers couldn't run, or monitors run, beyond like a 640 or 800, they smacked them down, as they used to call it, which is greatly reduces the quality of it to make the footprint of it smaller. So we have these big versions that we're re-rendering and getting back at that resolution. Like the one Brian loves to tell is in the scene where he's building the sandcastle and destroying it. Yeah. There's like little ants walking around on the ground and stuff, and like you just see like kind of fuzz, but like you can see the ants. So like the level of fidelity we're getting, and I think that was when the cinematics team was really hitting its stride. So I think it's fun to be able to bring those back, and they're so iconic to have them remastered that way is awesome.
Yeah. I'm excited because I remember way back when like that. Okay, so they were on like 700 megabyte CDs, and that thing took up the entire 700 megabytes, like packed in there. And I remember they were like .mpq files or something like that, and then you would change them. We realized, my friends and I realized, you could change them to like a different file format and run them in Windows Media Player or whatever. So it's pretty cool to hear that like you guys still have those and they're available in 1080. That's super impressive. For people who are just looking back and going back through the campaign, what should they expect their experience to be? Obviously, like high res stuff. It sounds like the cinematics are getting sort of remastered, or however you want to handle the 1080 stuff. Anything else on the campaign side that you guys are looking to do?
Yeah, I think that is another one of those huge, like, this is why we're calling it Reforged. Christy Golden, who wrote the Arthas book and has written a lot of other stuff in that world, where WoW has taken this universe and the comics and the movie and everything else. Like, we're trying to take, inspiration from that. I would not call this a rewrite, but let's say Jaina, for an example. She and Sylvanas are two powerful characters who are emerging in this game. It is their true origin story, and the same with Arthas. And but especially with those two, like, there aren't enough moments really watching them grow. So we're taking things from canon and interlacing that in a way that's natural to bring more of that to it, which I think is really exciting. And then, like Strathholm itself, the old one was a perfect square. It had a river in the middle of it. It had a zoo. There was many things that if you ran through the Strathholm instance now, you'd scratch your head. Greek columns, and that it was on like a Chicago-like grid system. Sure. Instead of being cow paths the way you'd expect out of an old kind of Western European city. So we actually got in WoW, went up to 10,000 feet or whatever, and kind of took a snapshot and rebuilt the map to mirror that. Like, we also moved your starting position to the southeast corner so that you enter Strathholm the same way you would for the instance and things like that, to just like harken back and better heal up. So Dalaran and other places that that the world has built so much are being reforged with this, are going to have that same sort of treatment where the assets themselves will look much more like that, and then we'll rebuild the cities to look like that too.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's interesting to me, and must have been an interesting challenge for you guys as you were approaching this, because it was StarCraft to StarCraft, and then like there's StarCraft 2, which built on it, but it's still here. There are so many people, I assume, that have never played Warcraft 3, but have spent years or maybe a decade plus in World of Warcraft, and it might be strange for them to kind of go back. So it does sound like you are looking to add some of the maybe even story elements, but also like just the looks and feels from WoW into Warcraft 3.
Yeah. Yes.
That's cool. All right. I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, multiplayer experience. So, like, you are looking at balance changes there. How are you going about approaching that?
So the nice thing is the community has been theory crafting on balance for about 14 years since the last patch, whenever that was. So we kind of started there. And one of the big things we noticed at first was like, especially with undead, there was really only two picks for your heroes, and we were like, all right, the best way to mix up the meta would be to give you other options for heroes, because that changes the dynamic of the gameplay so much. So that's where Matt Morris and the design team started, was like, and it's a smaller set of data to deal with. So he started there, and with updating the map pools to make sure that like your starting locations were the same, because often we'd see that the lumber was much further away from one starting location than another, so that you're immediately at a handicap at the start of the game. So fixing things like that, and just getting them out there, doing some refactors based on community feedback, and so we'll continue to do that. We hope to get it into that state where we can all agree, just like with SCR, that it's as balanced as it probably can be, and now it is just how good are the players and the dynamic there, instead of being, oh, undead has an advantage against night elf or whatever.
And with the even like the control scheme and all that stuff, it was interesting because when I went and played, I was like, okay, there's a couple things here that are a little bit more wonky than I remember, even though that's how they are, right? It's you kind of look back more fondly. There's a lot of lessons that have been learned with StarCraft II. Do you ever consider like pulling that stuff in, like maybe even default hotkeys and sort of those things to make it a little bit more like a lot of the lessons you learned on StarCraft II, bring those into this game?
Sure. Hotkeys are one of those things where you can essentially modify a text file and put it back in the game. So we feel like that kind of has made it acceptable to have them remap. So we will have the ability to remap hotkeys. Some of the other things like that come up are unlimited unit selection and things like that. That would fundamentally change the way the game plays and is balanced, so we won't mess with that. I think there are some niceties we could bring into the campaign and then maybe use that as a test bed of like, hey, because like the culling demo, there's a distinct kind of like, hey, I'm new to RTS, and let's give you a version that focuses more on the story and gives you the same objectives but lets you roll through it a little bit more naturally. And then hard is old school. This is Warcraft 3. We're going to punch you in the face. Yeah. You're going to know that this is a tough RTS. So we still have that, but maybe with that kind of simpler version, we could introduce some of those other things like displaying the control groups, and we're still more in theory crafting stage on that, but we want to do things to give you that modern play experience as well.
Yeah. Now with this game, I remember I sat down with you ahead of StarCraft Brood War coming out getting remastered, and that was I think maybe a couple months before the game came out. Now you're here, you're announcing this, and thus it seems like you have a precedent here where you discuss a game and then a couple months it comes out. So like we should be looking at maybe December or January on this one, right?
Yeah, no, I wish, but no. The unfortunately, each of these games is getting bigger and more complex. So we don't have like an official date at this point, other than saying it'll be next year. Yeah.
But you'll I'm sure we'll be hearing more and more as the date gets closer, yeah. And you'll be able to show off more and more as the work gets done. The final thing here is just it seems like you're looking to. Unlike StarCraft, where it was more of a, like, hey, we talked to the pros and the community, and we're not changing much. Here you are. Even after doing doing the demo downstairs, I went to like the feedback station. You guys were like, "Did you like that we changed Stratholme? Did you like that we did this?" So it looks like this is still in the process, and you guys are looking for feedback and kind of reception, right?
Yeah. So like candidly, we kind of rushed to get this playable at BlizzCon to like start this conversation. Like there was so many telltale signs with us patching and doing other things. Like plenty of people in the community were reading between the lines and understanding what we were doing. So we wanted to say yes, it's officially happening, so that we could kind of lower the curtain and talk more and better understand what the community wants. Because like I said, there is a desire to kind of be progressive, but we don't want to be overly progressive, and we don't want to be too disruptive to the way people want things. So this is the right way to me to say, here's our party, everybody's invited now, and let's talk about it.
So where do people send feedback or thoughts or anything like that? You have like an email or phone number you want to just throw out in the end here?
Yeah, so I think the URL is bit.ly /reforged, and that'll get you to the feedback. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So people can, if people are looking at home and seeing like feedback, or they hear that you guys are planning on changing Stratholme, and they're like, "Don't do that. That ruins everything." They can check stuff out there.
Yeah. Yep.
Very cool. Anything you want to say to any of the Warcraft 3 Reforged fans, the people that are pumped and excited for this stuff?
Just that we are equally excited. I hope you guys see what we're doing and do give feedback. It's incredibly important, and we do have time to react. So the more conversation we have now, the better. This is an incredibly cathartic thing for me, so I assume it is for a lot of folks at home as well. Looking forward to it. Keep cheering for us, and we'll do the best we can.
Thank you so much, Pete. Congratulations on the big announcement here. Looking forward to seeing what continued news comes out before the game is playable sometime next year. For everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things BlizzCon right here on my YouTube channel. Hey, I know this isn't League of Legends, but it's so cool. I love BlizzCon. I absolutely love BlizzCon. Thanks for watching the interview or piece of content I just did. I'm going to let you in a secret. I filmed these outros, and I don't know what they're going to be attached to. It's I just have to kind of ad-lib it. But anyway, thank you so much for checking this out. If you enjoyed it, feel free to subscribe to this YouTube channel or my Twitch. You can go follow it. It's in the description. There's a bunch of stuff in that description. Thanks so much for watching. BlizzCon is awesome.